Welcome, my fellow fanaticals, to the CSBS Sports Edition. I am your host, Chris Stanton, and then today is Hump Day. Woo woo! And we all know what that means. We are one day away from real football. Not preseason football, not college football, real football. And enjoy it while you can before Goodell turns it into flag football. But that means, since we are on the cusp of the NFL season, this is going to be a pretty football-oriented day, all with the impending season and with the college season just starting. So if you're not a fan of football, listen anyway, because we might convert you. But before we get to our opening segment, the CS, or calling out the BS.
You talking to me? You talking to me? You talking to me? Well, who the hell are you talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here.
Before we get to that segment, I wanted to address something that some people have mentioned to me. The use of the word fanaticals. No, it is not a real word. It is one that I have made up, but words do not control me. And just like the words truthiness and strategery, it is one that I intend to inject into the common lexicon. Fanaticals is a very simple term. It is a derivative of the word fanatic, but unlike fanatics, who are usually crazy and illogical, a fanatical is a person who shows the same passion and zeal for their sporting events, but while keeping their intelligence and logic intact. So, when I call you all fanaticals, I am of course referring to the wonderfully intelligent and logical sports fans that you all are. Now, on to calling out the BS, which is brought to you by Arby's. Try Arby's Giant 2 for $6 mix and match deal. Choose 2 from the beef and cheddar and or the roast beef, each with a 5-ounce serving of roast beef. Only at participating Arby's. Arby's, sliced fresh, great taste. Today we're going to start off with the Johnny Manziel suspension by the NCAA. And I'm sure you all saw it and thought it was as ridiculous as I did, because Johnny Manziel, for allegedly violating NCAA rules and selling autographs and memorabilia to certain vendors, got suspended for half a game. Yes, he got suspended for half a game in which he would have only played a half against some slack-jawed Division II team that they were expected to beat by at least 3 touchdowns. Not exactly the biggest punishment in the world for Texas A&M or to Johnny Manziel. He's released no statements other than that which the coach has said, and not even a denial that he did all this stuff. And it's very frustrating because a couple years ago, Dez Bryant, when he was playing for the Oklahoma State University team, he was suspended for lying to the NCAA, not even doing anything wrong. For those of you who don't remember, Dez Bryant was caught doing something. It was not illegal, but he thought it was. So he lied about it to the NCAA. Even though he did nothing against NCAA rules, they punished him and suspended him for multiple games for lying. Now we have Johnny Manziel, who is supposed to be selling autographs in direct violation to NCAA rules, and he gets suspended for half a game. It makes no sense to me, but maybe somebody can explain it to me. And if you want to weigh in and explain this to me, give me a call, 630-534-0779, or tweet me at the CSBS. I'm here all day. Up next, sticking with the football theme, Ray Lewis. New contributor to all things NFL for whoever wants to listen to him speak. He came out with a statement saying that the blackout at the Super Bowl wasn't a coincidence. Yes, he believes that since it happened while the Ravens were, in his words, spanking the 49ers, that it was more than a coincidence and that there might be a conspiracy involved. You know what? I'm not one to disregard all conspiracies, but I'm pretty sure there's nothing going on here. So, Ray, just keep those kind of things to yourself. But good thing for you.
That's all we got. One goddamn hit. Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
We're not taking our cues and mental faculties from Ray Lewis, so we don't have to worry too much about what he says, as long as it's coherent and doesn't drop God in there 7 times. But expect a lot from him this upcoming season, because he's always good for a soundbite. Keeping along with football, as most of you know, I'm a huge Peter King fan. senior writer for Sports Illustrated, and he recently came out with his picks, playoffs, awards, MVP, the whole 9 yards. And most of the time, I read these articles, and I don't give much stake in them because, let's face it, it's all our opinion, it's all for fun, and I'm not going to call out somebody for having an opinion. I do have one problem with his Super Bowl pick. He's picked New England to win the Super Bowl. I don't understand. Even after reading the article, I don't understand it. You have Tom Brady, who is yet another year older, who's lost one of his best offensive linemen. 10 of the 11 receivers that were on that team in camp were not on the team last year. He lost one tight end, and his other tight end is coming off multiple surgeries to arm and back. And their best running back is supposed to be the guy who was the backup last year, Shane Vereen. It just doesn't make sense, especially when they have to get through the Broncos, the Bengals, the Texans, and a couple other tough teams in the AFC. I just think if you're going to make a bold prediction, which everybody should do, you should be able to defend it a little more than I trust Belichick and Brady. Because the book has been written on Belichick and Brady, and they haven't won a Super Bowl in a long time, because everybody knows you hit Brady, he gets erratic, they're a beatable team. Especially since they've got an aging defense that hasn't been able to stop anybody, and they haven't been able to replace anybody on the defense. The offense isn't nearly as imposing as it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's a bold prediction, and I applaud him for the bold prediction, but I just wish he would have explained it a little more. So one of my favorite writers had to call him out for not properly explaining his picks. You're going to go out on a limb like that? At least give us something to gnaw on. Throw us a bone here. But because we've got the MLB playoffs in the near future, we're going to switch it up and we're going to talk about baseball for a moment. And one thing I need to call out is all these so-called experts trying to justify not voting for Max Scherzer to win the Cy Young. For those of you who don't know, Max Scherzer is a pitcher on the Detroit Tigers. He has started this season 19-2 and is pretty much top 5 in any meaningful pitching stat category. And yet, all of these intellectuals and so-called experts, basically number crunchers, are trying to come up with reasons not to vote for him. Two of the big names are saying, vote for Yu Darvish or Felix Hernandez instead. Yeah, their records aren't as good, but if you look at the stats, and they get into all that sabermetrics stuff, which, quite frankly, you need a special dictionary to understand all of it. But I just wanted to throw out some stats for people out there so they understand what's being talked about. What are the biggest statistical categories traditionally in pitching? ERA, wins, strikeouts, and batting average against. ERA, Max Scherzer is 2.9, number 4 in the AL. In wins, he is number 1 in Major League Baseball with 19. In batting average against, he is number 2 with 196. And with strikeouts, he's got 201, not including last night's game, which is good for second. Yu Darvish is right up there he's first in strikeouts with 236, and he is second in ERA with 273. He's only got 12 wins, and his batting average against is right around the same as Scherzer, just a couple points higher with 189. And then Felix Hernandez doesn't even come close. He's got the 200 strikeouts, but he's got a 246 batting average against, good for 15th in the league, 12 wins, and a 3.01 ERA, which is good for 8th. Now, why do I measure these stats? Because for a lot of them, the ERA, the batting average against, and the strikeouts, they're pretty comparable. They're pretty close. But people discount wins. When you go 19-2, that's not just luck, and that's not just because your team's good at hitting. At some point, you've got to be recognized for being an asset to your team and for being at an elite level. And you can't tell me, or at least a lot of these number crunchers can't, that Max Scherzer doesn't deserve it when he is top 5 in every category and that the wins shouldn't matter. People forget, wins are the most important stat. How many times have you heard the phrase, winning ugly, or on any given Sunday? It's because no matter how imposing a team may seem, it doesn't matter what the stats say. That's why you have real life, and that's why you have fantasy football, or baseball, or basketball. Wins are what matters, and I'm sick of these sabermetric people trying to discount a team's win rate when their pitcher's in just because somebody else might have a made-up stat that's better. This happened several years ago when Felix Hernandez won this AL Cy Young Award with only 12 wins. Now, I agree, wins isn't everything, but it is important. And when you go 19-2, meaning your team has only lost 2 of the games that you started pitching in, you need to be recognized for that, and he will and should win the Cy Young Award. And one more thing I want to call out, and it was just announced today by Adrian Wojciechowski, and that's that Jay-Z is planning on selling some of his ownership shares to Jason Kidd. Well, this would have been a good idea if he would have done it a year ago when he started opening his Rock Nation sports agency, because right now he is in conflict with NBA rules. You cannot be an agent and a partial owner in a franchise. You can't do it. And yet the NBA has completely let this go. And he's not even planning on selling all of his shares to Jason Kidd, who is the coach of his team, the Nets. It's going to be a lot harder to fire a minority owner when or if he starts failing as a coach. But I digress. The real problem I have with this is the fact that the NBA has done nothing so far to get this unlicensed agent to sell his minority shares. And why do people keep going to him? It's obviously not for his experience, and it's probably just because his wife Beyonce has connections at Pepsi, which is probably why it explains that Kevin Durant, Robinson Cano, and Victor Cruz are all clients that jumped to him this past year. The amount that's going to be allegedly going to be sold to Jason Kidd is not disclosed because it's not even disclosed how much of the team Jay-Z owns. But from what the sources say, in this case, Adrian Wojciechowski, it's going to be approximately 1/6% of the team. So we're not even talking about a lot of the shares here. But still, I'm calling out the fact that the NBA has ignored inherent conflicts of interest with its arguably highest profile ownership in its league. Anyway, going to move on to some college football because this was the first week of college. And let's face it, a lot of people like college, but I always hate the first week because most of the games are between the superpowers and some Division II team that are just given up as cannon fodder to get that easy win, to get the Division II school some money. And let's face it, who wants to watch Alabama win by 4 touchdowns against whoever they played? I don't even know at this point. But I would be remiss not to give props where it is due, and that's Florida State University. They had their quarterback taken in the first round. He was the only quarterback taken in the first round, E.J. Manuel, last year. And he was now going to start for the Bills. And they replaced him with a freshman quarterback named Jamie Winston. In his first game, they won the game 41-13 against Pitt. Not some slack-jawed Division II team, but a very good, historically, very good Division I team in Pitt. He completed 25 out of 27 passes. 25 out of 27. That's over 90% completion rate. 356 passing yards, 25 rushing yards, 1 rushing TD, and 4 passing TDs. In this guy's first ever collegiate game against a historically strong opponent, this guy put up about 380 yards by himself and 5 touchdowns as a freshman. This guy's going to be fun to watch. If he wasn't in the Heisman consideration, he launched himself onto that discussion now. So we'll see how the season progresses, but it's going to be fun watching this guy in college football, especially in a division that's in such flux like the ACC. It's always hard to tell what's going to happen in that division because teams can be so up and down in it. Speaking of college football, we all know Alabama is the preseason favorite to win the national championship again, as they should be. They've had one of the best runs in history as far as collegiate titles go. They've got one of the most renowned coaches in Nick Saban, and they get the prime blue chip 5-star recruits from high school. Let's face it, if you get a letter from Alabama and you're a high school football player, you're going to have a hard time turning them down, especially with their latest campaign. Their latest campaign promoted all the money that their draftees, this year's class that they sent to get drafted in the NFL,